Hello. Welcome to the Make Nerd channel. I come to you with some news, with some updates. Because we have been sort of inundated with the India Pakistan conflict for the last 2 weeks, I was thinking, what is the news that we missed out on? There are, of course, going to be other events that are happening, and there were other events that were happening. So, in this update, I'm going to sort of give you three news items which you should care about, which you did not care about because the India Pakistan conflict was going on. The first one is, of course, related to Shri Sir, Adarniya Business Sir, Gautamji Adani ji, and his plan to take over and redevelop Dharavi in Mumbai. In short, he is going to send 50,000 people on a landfill. Yeah. And there are two other items which I want you to know, but to know those, you'll have to watch the whole video. I'm not going to spoil it for you. So, watch the whole thing. Let's go and start with the first one. Right. So, in the world of Mumbai, this is the news that comes to us. Why BMC's 3-year plan to clear Devnar landfill is easier said than done. Essentially, the BMC on May 14th floated a 2,368 crore tender to clean up 271 acres of the largest 311 acres of Devnar dumping ground by a process of bioremediation within 3 years. Now, there is context to this. I'll tell you why this is important. This is related to the Dharavi redevelopment project, right? What is happening is this. So, this is the map of Mumbai. Okay, the red things you see are all slums. So, the biggest slum by far is this, which is Dharavi. Now, if you know our friend Mr. Gautam Adani, he won a project to redevelop this slum. It is Asia's biggest slum, as it is called, right? What that means is he is going to sort of demolish this whole place and build buildings there, right? And then give it out. And it's a very prime real estate right here because you can see this is Dadar, this is Bandra, this is Sion, this is the BKC. So it is like bang in the middle of Bombay, and it is very, very prime real estate, right? So it is very sought after land, which a lot of developers have been eyeing. And strangely enough, one day before the assembly elections were announced last year, this development project was handed over to Binesar, which is Adani. Now, you know that was a big issue during the elections also. So we're going to talk about that. But what is happening, I'll show you, is that this is Dharavi, right? So there are around, some people say 1 million people live there, but I think the official count is somewhere around 5 lakh to 6 lakh people who live here in Dharavi, right? Now they're going to be moved to different places. First is the people who reside in Dharavi before the year 2000, they will get a place in Dharavi. So the new buildings that come up, the residents will live there. The second group of people who live between 2000 to 2011, they will be moved out to different places. First is this. यहाँ पे Kurla में, right? So they're going to be moved. One will be somewhere in Kurla. The other one is going to be far away here, which is the salt plains between Mulund and this is the Mulund Bhandup salt plain, as it is called. This is where they will be moved. And the third one, which is the most interesting one, is this. This, friends, is the Devnar dumping ground. It is literally a landfill, right? So all the garbage from Bombay, it comes into Devnar and into this dumping ground. Now, this was an active dumping ground until the redevelopment project was announced, right? The moment this redevelopment project was announced, they stopped dumping here, but then it is an active landfill. It is a crazy active landfill, and it is one of the biggest in Bombay. So, yeah, a chunk of people, some are saying an estimated 50,000 people are going to be moved from Dharavi to the Devnar dumping ground after it is redeveloped. That is the news. And that is why this contract is important. 2,368 crore tender has been put out to clean the Deonar dumping ground in order to rehabilitate the people that they're going to displace from Dharavi. Now, why is this problematic? So, a little bit of details on the Dharavi redevelopment project, right? It is going to redevelop the 600-acre slum, which is the biggest slum in India. It also has a lot of factories. It also has a lot of commercial activity happening there. According to some estimates, yearly about $1 billion of revenue comes out of Dharavi as well. So it is an residential area, but also sort of a commercial slash industrial area also, right? So they, out of that, 296 acres have been earmarked for the Dharavi redevelopment project. As I said, it's a shifting population more or less, but they're saying that about 5 lakh to 6 lakh people actually live there, but then 4 lakh excess people also keep coming in and out renting all the things, right? So it's like a overall population of 1 million people who we are looking at. It proposes, so essentially the redevelopment will be carried out by Dharavi Redevelopment Project Private Limited. It is essentially a special purpose vehicle. What that means is that entity was created so that two parties could come together and execute this one particular project, which is the Dharavi redevelopment project. 80% of the share in that SPV is by Adani, and the rest of the 20% is by the housing department's slum Rehabilitation Authority. Okay, BMC Commissioner Bhushan Gagrani is the director, but there are 9 other directors on the board, including Pranav Adani, who is the son of Shri Sir Business Sir, right? In case you forgot, Pranav Adani recently, again May 2nd, has been accused of doing this. SEBI accuses Pranav Adani on insider trading. He seeks to settle. तो ही इज लाइक मेरे को झगड़ने का नहीं है, ठीक है, किया होगा, अब सेटल कर लेते हैं basically. No? So Pranav Adani is on the board as well. Just thought that I should give you that news as well. Beneficiaries under the Dharavi project have been divided into 2 categories, as I said. Eligible, who had housing structures built on it before January 2000. And there are ineligible being they don't have houses before 2000. But again, why this project is being seen as a very different project is because the Redevelopment Project Authority has said that they are going to rehabilitate everyone there. Everyone, right? Either in Dharavi or outside Dharavi, in the 3 locations that I showed you, right? Government announced that nearly 50,000 to 1 lakh of the 4 lakh ineligible beneficiaries would be given rental units at nominal rates at Deonar dump. So other than the eligible people, the ineligible people are going to be sent to the Deonar dump, which I showed you. Indian Express filed a bunch of RTIs asking, was there any environmental assessment done of this area? Is it dangerous, etc.? And why did the Dharavi redevelopment project choose this parcel of land as, rehabilitation space? They said that there is a crisis of land in Mumbai. Duh. And there are few options when it comes to getting a large parcel of land for this. So that is why. And they blamed the special purpose vehicle or the Redevelopment Project Authority as people who are like, oh, we asked them what land do you want, and they said this one, and then we just agreed to it. So there was no environmental assessment done particularly to find out whether that can be rehabilitated. They just were like, हाँ इन्होंने बोला है तो दे देते हैं. That's basically what happened. Also, important detail, Maharashtra state government's Gruha Nirman Vibhag or housing department, which is the one that approved this, is with Eknath Shinde. Yes. Eknath Shinde. I have to say this, throughout the assembly elections, one of the big things that was happening was the Dharavi redevelopment project. And everybody was like, what is this Eknath Shinde doing? Who is he? What side is he playing on or whatever? And it was quite apparent that he has the blessings of Business Sir. And now with this, it is kind of clear that he does have the blessing of Business Sir, and he doesn't care. He just doesn't, he basically gives them what they want. Allegedly. Please don't sue me. Allegedly. Okay, so as I said, this is a active landfill, and that is a problem because there are some challenges we need to talk about. Basically, the BMC will now have to clear at least 23,000 metric ton of garbage every day to be able to clean this dump in the 3-year timeline that they have given. And this is almost the 4 times the amount of waste that is generated in Mumbai on a daily basis. So, whatever. They have stopped dumping in Deonar, but there is already so much dump in Deonar. Some are saying, there was somewhere which I had read, it is like a 15-story building at this point of time. It's a big dump yard, Deonar, and they have to clean this in 3 years. So it's not going to be great. In 2018, BMC began clearing 80 acres in Mulund, a separate dump yard, where the waste had been dumped since 1968. According to official data, around 47 lakh metric ton of the 70 lakh metric ton of solid waste has been removed so far. Okay, so 2018 में चालू किया Mulund, and it is still not complete, right? 42% has been reclaimed till now. 42%. So this is a way bigger dump yard than Mulund, way bigger amount of garbage than Mulund. So it is kind of unlikely that they would be able to clean it in 3 years. So this is going to become an issue, friendos. I believe this is going to become an issue. Once the bioremediation process is complete, transporting the residues will need at least 1200 trucks to be deployed every day. Every day. It is that massive of an operation to remove the garbage from there. Mumbai's famous monsoon season will also be a challenge because in the 4 months of monsoon, you can't do this cleanup. Which means that even if they're saying 3 years, it is actually 2 years. You can't work for 4 months while it's raining like crazy in Bombay. There is also the cost. Clearing Mulund landfill cost 598 crore so far. At the rate of 798 per ton of waste, clearing Deonar will cost 5 times more. Infrastructure and manpower that will be deployed will be as almost 4 times more of that was what was deployed in Mulund, right? Other than these, there are of course environmental concerns. So you have to understand Deonar is an active landfill. What that means, it is spewing toxic gases constantly. Now, what happens in landfills essentially is that they dump a bunch of garbage on top of each other. They don't distinguish between, plastic, not plastic, green, blue, recyclable, not recyclable. So overall, it's just dumping, right? Then the biodegradable waste inside forms something called leachate. Okay, leachate लिखा है वहाँ पे, leachate, right? Which is basically like toxic water sort of that comes out of it. It's dirty as hell. It seeps into the groundwater and then it pollutes even the groundwater. There is this dump yard near Noida, वहाँ पे गाजियाबाद के पास. It's got so bad that the leachate started eroding the ground under it, and roads started caving in whenever garbage trucks were going on top of the road. There were like giant holes in it. You can Google it. It happens. So leachate is very dangerous, and Deonar has been creating a lot of leachate. Now, even if they remove the garbage, there is still a very terrible soil underneath, which is extremely toxic as well. An average of 6,202 kg of methane is emitted from Deonar landfill every hour, making it one of the top 22 methane hotspots in India. Right? So essentially, even if the landfill is cleared, the methane development might not stop, and that is not great. Because when you are rehabilitating an entire population of close to 1 lakh people, 50,000 to 1 lakh people in one area, they would require hospitals, they would require schools, they would require other things. Building hospitals and schools in this area is a bad idea. Bad idea. Yeah, so the mota summation of this entire story is that Sri Sir Adani is going to get like a chunk of really prime real estate in the middle of Mumbai, right? He's going to rehabilitate some of the people who are from Dharavi in Dharavi, but then of course there will be a lot of space left to build buildings गिव इट आउट टू रियल इस्टेट. बहुत पैसा बनाने वाले हैं हमारे बिजनेस सर इसकी वजह से, रियल इस्टेट. And the people who are going to be shifted out might be shifted out into a landfill, which is going to be terrible. A landfill that might not be cleared on time, which means that the Dharavi thing, this prime real estate, they would want it as fast as possible. So they will end up kicking out people, a lot of them, which will have no space to go until this is cleared up. About 1 lakh people are going to be displaced. So until they get a space somewhere in the other two locations that I showed, this is going to turn out to be a disaster. Yeah. Is Adani doing a land grab? Who knows? You tell me. You tell me. Okay, now for the second news story. I don't know if you know, but this government is full of liars. And the biggest proof of them being liars has dropped right when we were talking about the India Pakistan conflict. There was this news that came in, which is excess death data shows Bihar, Gujarat undercounted COVID 19 toll by 30 times. So, just released civil registration system figures indicate that India recorded 37.4 lakh excess deaths in the pandemic years. Right now, I don't know if you remember, but during the pandemic, one of the biggest complaints that was coming from like minded, rational citizens is that states are not giving out the numbers of actual people that are dying, right? And the Indian government and other state governments were all like, nahi, nahi, this is the amount of people who are dying, whatever. Turns out now, 3 years after the pandemic is done, we find out that in the year 2020 and 2021, when the pandemic was happening, 37.4 extra people died. Extra, who were not counted. Right? And they dropped this information in the middle of when the India Pakistan conflict was happening so that people don't look at it. So I thought you should look at it. That's why we are looking at this. So what happened is that we count the total number of deaths on a regular basis, on a yearly basis. The total deaths in 2018 and 2019 was 145 lakh people. But the number of deaths in the two pandemic years, 2020 and 21, went up to 183 lakh. So usually this is like a constant, like, like more or less the same. But of course, because the pandemic happened, 183 lakh deaths were recorded. This indicates 37.4 lakh excess deaths in contrast to India's official COVID 19 toll till today, which is 5.3 lakh. So India said 5.3 lakh people died. Actually, 37.4 lakh people excess deaths have happened. That's a crazy discrepancy, and that's why I say this government is full of liars. So throughout, the WHO was maintaining its own death count, right? And the mathematical model of WHO estimated that there are 47.4 lakh excess deaths in India between the period of January 2020 and December 2021. But the government said ki nahi, nahi. How do you know, you foreign organization WHO, you are trying to ruin the image of India and all? Turns out the WHO was right. And not exactly right, but close to what our government was saying at least. They were basically saying that 47 lakh excess people have died. Turns out some 34.5 lakh excess people have died, while our government is stuck at 5 lakh. Now, let's look at the worst states, because of course different states were recording different figures. So far it has been seen that Maharashtra and Kerala have been the only two states which have been sort of given the actual data on deaths. Other than that, there were states which were hiding it, and now we know which they are. The first one is Bihar. Bihar saw a 65.9% jump in total registered deaths in the first 2 years. Right? State recorded 3.78 lakh excess deaths, but their official death rate, which the government said, is 12,315. Just look at this. 12,315 deaths is what the government says. Actual people, 3.78 lakh excess deaths. which means the state's likely toll is 30 times higher than the official figure. Then we come to Gujarat. State had reported 11,101 deaths, and the excess mortality essentially toll stands at 3.53 lakh, 31 times undercounting in Gujarat. So these are the two most states which are the biggest offenders, Bihar and Gujarat. And Gujarat, of course, is where our prime influencer hails from, in case you have forgotten. Yeah. Yeah, they've been lying. Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh recorded 3.74 lakh excess deaths compared to 2018. This is 15 times more. They said 23,000 people died, 23,743, but actually 3.74 lakh excess people died in that year, in those 2 years. So of course उत्तर प्रदेश से तो क्या ही एक्सपेक्टेशन रख सकते हैं. मध्य प्रदेश also 28 times, as you can see. They said 10,788, but it is 28 times more than that. There is Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, who also were undercounting 15 times, and Telangana is 17 times, so they are not doing great either. So pretty much all states lied, and the result of that is that we have severely undercounted the number of people who died during COVID-19. Why is this problematic? Because during a pandemic, it is the job of a government to give realistic picture to the citizens so that they can be aware about how bad the threat is. There are a few things that happened during COVID which were worrying. First is, of course, the government was just denying everything. They were just like, oxygen ka shortage kidhar hai? While people were actually dying on the streets looking for oxygen. They completely ignored the migrant crisis, which is they put a lockdown, and there were people walking from one state to the other all across India, and they were just like, kya hi kar sakte hai? Third thing, of course, is the actual reporting of data. The reason why that was important is because people would be more aware of how bad the situation is. Only states that were doing it was Maharashtra and Kerala to a large extent, and they were actually telling people how bad it is, which is why people in those states would have taken it more seriously, and the government would have been able to do the lockdown better or contain the disease a little bit better. You cannot have a government that is lying through its teeth during a pandemic, and that is what we saw. And this is why they were hiding this. India-Pakistan conflict was the perfect time to hide this, and they have done it, and it is a terrible thing. Terrible. On to the third news item which you missed out but shouldn't have and should pay attention to. This comes from the world of the judiciary and the courts. It comes from here. Justice Yashwant Verma. In case you don't know who he is, Justice Yashwant Verma was caught in a big scandal around Holi. TLDR, what happened is that Justice Verma was on a holiday during Holi with his wife. There was a fire in his official residence in Delhi. An outhouse behind the official residence caught fire. When the fire tenders went there, they found a giant ton of cash, just burning cash inside the outhouse. So there was a weird sort of cover up that started happening, which is Justice Verma rushed back. He was like, मेरे को नहीं पता किधर से आया first. Then there was like this weird sort of delay in actually giving out the news to people. It took an entire week for the rest of the world to find out that this incident had actually happened. There were investigations that were immediately launched within the judiciary. So the CJI, the Delhi High Court Justice, all of them started investigating the matter, calling Yashwant Verma, asking what is going on, etc. But we didn't find out until a week about what is going on. And the Delhi police and the fire tenders were also kind of quiet about it until this whole story broke out. Now, what happened is that the CJI Sanjeev Khanna set up a 3-member committee which consists of the Chief Justice of High Court of Punjab and Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, and High Court of Haryana, I'm sorry, High Court of Karnataka, not Haryana. High Court of Karnataka. The panel started a probe on March 25th and submitted its report on May 4th. Right? So, what happens is that whenever a judge is accused of corruption, the first step that the judiciary does is the CJI sets up a committee, an investigation committee, which was set up on March 25th. And then they submitted a report to CJI, right? Now, the CJI sort of confronted Yashwant Verma, who is accused, and then asked him, "You should resign. Basically, we have a lot of evidence. You should resign." Turns out the Yashwant Verma refused. Plain and simple. He just refused. He's like, "नहीं करने का है, मेरे को नहीं resign करने का है." You have to understand here that the only way to remove a judge in India is either they resign themselves when they are caught of corruption, so they save face essentially, and the second way is for the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha to hold impeachment proceedings, and 2/3 of the both houses have to impeach the judge in question, right? But that step only happens if the Chief Justice allows it to happen, right? So the first option that Chief Justice of India, Sanjeev Khanna, ex-Chief Justice now, gives Yashwant Verma is, please resign. We have found things. Please resign. And Yashwant Verma is like, no, I am being accused. This is not true, whatever. So now he has sent a recommendation to the president, which means we might see impeachment happening in the next monsoon session. And that is damn exciting. It's a very rare occurrence, only happened twice before in our history. Once, right before the impeachment started, the judge resigned. The second time, while the impeachment proceedings was going on, 2 days later, the judge resigned. Right? So, we will see if Yashwant Verma sticks it out till the end. Unlikely, maybe before the impeachment proceedings begin, he will also resign, or in the middle, he will resign. But it would be kind of crazy if he sort of stays all throughout and handles both houses and their questioning. That would be something. That would be something. And you know why it will be interesting? Because there are some details that have come out with the evidence report that was presented, which the ex-CJI had initiated, right? There were some mismatches found between what Yashwant Verma was saying and the report and what it said. Leaflet is the one that did some reporting on this. Leaflet is an organization you should check out as well. It is a legal, independent, journalistic venture. So they are the ones who found the mismatches between Justice Verma's claims and the evidence on the ground. Mota, what had happened is that Justice Verma's outhouse had caught fire. I told you that. And then through the night, some private vehicles were coming in and out of the house and cleaning the outhouse. Initially, it was thought that his daughter-in-law or daughter was the one who was cleaning it, but turns out they were out of the country, so they couldn't have. But someone had come in and cleared the burnt debris of cash, which basically Justice Verma had said that he had no idea also existed. Now, when the people came, when the Delhi police came the next day and the fire tenders had gone and the Delhi police came, etc., they found like a clean outhouse, right? And Justice Verma had claimed that, oh no, kuch nahi tha yahan pe, kuch nahi tha. But they didn't realize that, he didn't realize that the fire tenders had taken some videos of the cash that they had found there when the fire actually happened, which came out later, which was shared with the Chief Justice, which was shared with other people also, and which was shared on social media as well. So, yeah, so basically the thing is, if he does go for impeachment, this is like a big smoking gun now. I have to tell you that the investigation that was done, the CJI, the report that they got was never made public. It should be made public. There are demands that that report should be made public so that we know how bad this is. But it was not made public. Another thing that will happen during impeachment is that probably this report, which is kind of under the wraps right now, will be shared with MPs, which means the MPs can choose to put it on the table of the House, which means it can become public. right? So another reason why I don't think this impeachment will happen, which is like go to the house and he will resign before, is because if that report comes out, becomes public, and then he's actually questioned on the floor of the house, it will be a big embarrassment for him, major embarrassment for him. Imagine 750 MPs just going at you, right? Another reason why I think he might not go through with it is because usually whenever there is a conflict between the legislature and judiciary, they're very civil. Essentially, the legislature is like, no, no, judiciary, you do your thing, and judiciary is like, no, no, legislature, you do your thing. But this is where both worlds sort of collide. What happens is that throughout, legislature has been saying that the judiciary is not transparent enough. They don't talk about their judge appointments properly. They are not transparent about that. They are not transparent about these sort of cases that happen with judges. There is no way to investigate them properly unless the CJI allows it. So it's like an opaque sort of system that the judiciary is running. That is a big concern that the legislature has had for years now. What will happen is if the impeachment happens, MPs get a chance to just go at it. MPs will not hold back and they will attack the judiciary like nobody's business. And that is something that the judiciary as a whole wants to avoid. So, if Yashwant Verma sort of is convinced that no, I think I should resign before the impeachment happens, then the judiciary as a whole is saved, because Yashwant Verma will become like a face of a judiciary that is opaque and kind of corrupt, and the MPs will get a chance to talk about it. That is the situation that he might want to avoid and the judiciary might want to avoid. So that is another reason why I think it might not happen. But if it does happen, I'm damn excited, and this is the channel where you will get updates on that. So please follow, subscribe, do the things, because we are going to talk about it, just like we talked about these 3 news items which you didn't know about. So thank you so much for watching this episode updates. What am I calling this? Is this a series now? This is a new format I'm trying. What you see on the side are members who got to see this being recorded live. This is a recorded session which I do, and then I put out the video later, the edited video later. So if you want to be a part of these recording, chat, chill sessions, new stream sessions, please become a member of this channel, support, subscribe, and do the things. I hope this was useful. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.